Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are not just looking at a historical figure. We're looking at a phenomenon. We are looking at a human hurricane.
Chuckles. That's a good way to put it.
You know, we often talk about modern politics being chaotic, the scandals, the flip-flopping, the intense cults of personality, but honestly, if you think today's headlines are wild, you haven't met the man we're talking about today.
It is a story that truly defies belief. I mean, if you wrote this as a screenplay, Hollywood producers would kick it back.
Yeah, for sure.
They'd say it's too unrealistic, the protagonist is too overpowered, and the plot twists are, just too convenient. We're talking about Alcibiades.
The Chameleon of Athens.
Exactly. The man who managed to be the most important general for Athens and then, in a blink of an eye, the most important advisor to their archenemy Sparta.
And then Persia.
And then, just to keep things interesting, a key player for the Persian Empire, only to circle back and become the savior of Athens again, all in the span of one single war.
It is absolutely wild. And look, our mission today is to really unpack this. We've got a massive stack of sources here. We're pulling from the usual places, of course, but we are going deep into the heavy hitters like Thucydides, Plutarch, Xenophon.
Diodorus, yeah.
We want to understand not just what he did, but how on earth he got away with it. Because fundamentally, this is a story about the absolute limits of charisma.
And the cost of that charisma. That is the key. Because while Alcibiades is undeniably fascinating, he's the rock star of the ancient world, the Mick Jagger of the Peloponnesian War, there's a very dark undercurrent here.
Right.
This is a case study on ambition and what happens when a democracy falls in love with a man who believes, correctly perhaps, that he's bigger than the law.
So let's set the scene properly. We are in the 5th century BC. The Peloponnesian War is raging, or at least simmering, between the two superpowers, Athens and Sparta. And onto this stage steps Alcibiades. Who is this guy? Because he didn't just come from nowhere, right? He wasn't a self-made man in the modern sense.
Oh, far from it. In terms of advantages, he didn't just win the lottery. He basically owned the lottery commission. He was born around 450 BC in Athens. His father was Cleinias, a war hero who was killed in the Battle of Coronea when Alcibiades was just a toddler.
Okay.
But his mother, Dynamake, was from the Alcmeonid family.
Which is basically the Kennedys of ancient Athens, but with more curses and more money.
Even more so. She was a cousin of Pericles. And after his father died, Pericles, the man who essentially built the golden age of Athens, the man who commissioned the Parthenon, became his guardian.
Wow.
So Alcibiades grows up in the house of the most powerful man in the city. He is breathing rarefied air from the moment he can walk. He inherits massive wealth, and he has connections in every corner of the Greek world.
And when you say connections, it's not just in Athens, right?
Yeah.
I was reading about his name, Alcibiades. It doesn't sound like the other Athenian names.
You have a good ear. It's actually a name of Spartan origin. His family had these old ties of Xenia, guest friendship with the Spartan aristocracy.
Xenia, right. Can you break that down a little? What exactly did that mean in practice?
It's a crucial concept. Xenia meant that even if our cities are at war, you and I have a sacred personal bond of hospitality. It's inherited. It means if you show up at my door, I have to take you in, protect you, feed you, and vice versa.
So it's like a diplomatic back channel, but it's personal.
It's deeper than that. It's a sacred trust. So even though he is the golden boy of Athenian nobility, he has this built-in backdoor link to the enemy. That is going to become very important and very dangerous later on.
Okay, so he's rich, he's powerful, he's connected. And according to every source we have, he was, well, incredibly good-looking.
Inordinately vain about it, too. Plutarch mentions that his physical beauty was famous throughout his entire life, as a boy, as a youth, and as a man, and he had this personality that just drew people in like a gravitational well.
And he knew it?
Oh, he knew it. Aristophanes, the comic playwright who loved to roast politicians, even mentions that Alcibiades had a lisp.
A lisp. Usually in the rough-and-tumble world of ancient politics, wouldn't that be a liability?
You would think so. But for him, it wasn't a hindrance. People found it charming. It became part of his brand. It made his speech seem persuasive, unique, sort of aristocratic.
He weaponized it?
He weaponized everything about himself. He wore these long, sweeping purple robes that dragged on the ground, something the older conservative generation hated. But the youth of Athens copied him. He was the trendsetter. He was an influencer, 2,500 years early.
But he wasn't wasn't just a pretty face. He had a brain, and he had some very interesting teachers. And this is the part that always confuses me, and I think confuses a lot of people. He was a student of Socrates.
It is one of the great paradoxes of history.
Right, you have Socrates, the father of moral philosophy, the guy walking around barefoot asking about virtue and truth. And his star pupil is Alcibiades, who, spoiler alert, turns out to be pretty unscrupulous. How did that happen? What was the dynamic there?
Well, the sources tell us they had a very intense, almost obsessive relationship. Plutarch says that Alcibiades feared and reverenced Socrates alone, and basically despised everyone else who tried to court his favor.
So Socrates was the only one he respected.
I think Socrates saw the potential in him, this brilliant, beautiful, energetic young man, and thought, if I can just teach him virtue, if I can just tame this wild horse, he could be the perfect leader for Athens.
And for Alcibiades, what was in it for him?
I think for Alcibiades, Socrates was the only challenge. Everyone else flattered him. They told him how great he was. Socrates challenged him. Socrates told him he was ignorant, that he knew nothing.
And that was attractive to him.
It was intoxicating for someone who had everything handed to him. It was the one thing he couldn't just buy or charm his way through.
And it wasn't just classroom learning either. They were war buddies.
Literally. At the Battle of Potidæa in 432 BC, Socrates actually saved Alcibiades' life. Alcibiades was wounded in the chaos of the melee, and Socrates stood over him, shield up, and defended him against the enemy. That creates a bond of blood.
Wow.
And then, a few years later, at the Battle of Delium, which was a total disaster for Athens, Alcibiades, who was in the cavalry, on horseback saw Socrates retreating on foot. Instead of riding off to safety, he stayed by him and covered his retreat.
So there was a deep, genuine bond there. Clearly, the virtue part didn't fully stick. Because when we look at his personal life, wow, the drama with his wife, Hippolyte.
It's a tragic story, really, and it tells us everything we need to know about his view of the law. Hippolyte was a wealthy heiress, and she apparently loved him. But Alcibiades was a serial philanderer. He was constantly consorting with courtesans, bringing them into the home, humiliating her.
Just completely shameless about it.
Utterly. Eventually, she had enough. In Athens, a woman could divorce her husband, but the law was specific. She had to go to the archon, the magistrate, to file the papers in person.
Okay, so it required a public act.
Exactly. So she summons the courage. She goes to the agora, the public square, to file for divorce. And word gets to Alcibiades. He doesn't call a lawyer. He doesn't file a countersuit. He just shows up at the agora, grabs her, and physically carries her home through the marketplace.
He just carries her off in front of everyone.
In front of everyone, in front of the magistrate, and no one stopped him. It shows you his attitude. He felt he was above the law. He dared anyone to challenge him, and because of his wealth and his intimidating presence, no one did.
And she stayed with him.
Sadly, she stayed with him until she died shortly after. This is the man who is about to enter politics, someone who takes what he wants and dares anyone to stop him.
So let's pivot to his political rise. The war with Sparta has been going on for years. There's a truce, right? The Peace of Nicaea.
Correct. Signed in 421 BC. It was an uneasy truce, a Cold War period, negotiated largely by the older, more conservative general Nicias. He was sort of the anti-Alcibiades, cautious, pious, respected.
And Alcibiades is not happy about this peace.
He's furious. Not because he loves war necessarily, but because of his ego. He felt that because of his family's old connections to Sparta, that Xenia we talked about, the Spartans should have used him to negotiate the treaty.
They did it.
The Spartans looked at this wild, purple robe-wearing party boy and thought, no thanks. They ignored him. They went with Nicias, the steady hand. To Alcibiades, this was a massive snub.
So his ego is bruised, and he decides, if I can't be the peacemaker, I'll be the guy who blows up the peace.
Essentially. And he does it with one of the most devious political tricks I've ever read about. It's known as the affair of the Spartan ambassadors.
Oh, this is good. Walk us through this step by step, because it really shows his cunning.
So tension is rising again. Sparta sends ambassadors to Athens with full powers to negotiate. That's a technical diplomatic term. It means they can sign a deal right then and there without checking back with their government.
Okay, so they're serious. This is a real chance for diplomacy.
Very serious. They arrive, and they tell the Athenian council privately, yes, we have full powers. We're here to make a deal.
Sounds promising. If they have full powers, peace can be maintained.
Exactly. Alcibiades sees this and panics. If they make a deal, Nicias looks good, peace holds, and Alcibiades remains on the sidelines. So that night, he meets with the Spartans secretly.
He plays the friend.
He plays the friend. He invokes that old family Xenia. He says, listen, I know the Athenian assembly better than you do. They are haughty and ambitious. If you tell them you have full powers, they will bully you. They will wring every concession out of you. You'll lose everything.
So he's giving them friendly advice. I'm looking out for you guys.
Exactly. He tells them, trust me, when you go before the assembly tomorrow, tell them you don't have full powers. Tell them you're just here to talk. I will back you up, and I'll use my unmatched eloquence to get you what you want. But we have to lower their expectations first.
And they believe him.
They trust him completely. He's charming. He has the Spartan family connection. He seems sincere. So the next day, they stand up in front of the thousands of Athenians in the assembly. Nicias is there, expecting a smooth meeting.
And Alcibiades asks the question.
Alcibiades stands up and asks them, point blank, in front of everyone, do you have full powers to negotiate? And they say, just as he told them to, no, we do not.
And they pounces.
He goes absolutely nuclear. He starts screaming, acting shocked and betrayed. He calls them liars. He says, yesterday you told the council you had powers. Today you say you don't. You are dishonest. Sparta cannot be trusted. How can we make peace with people whose word is worthless?
Oh, man. He just completely destroys their credibility.
In an instant.
Yeah.
Nicias. He's humiliated. He looks like a fool because he vouched for them. The peace talks collapse. The Spartans are practically chased out of the city. And Alcibiades is suddenly the leading voice in Athens. The war hawk.
It's sociopathic, but it's brilliant. He manufactured a crisis just to get a promotion.
And it worked. He was appointed general. And he immediately started building an alliance against Sparta and the Peloponnese. But the real turning point, the moment that changes the course of the war in history, is the Sicilian Expedition in 415 BC.
This is the big one, Sicily. To the modern listener, this might just sound like another island, but back then, Syracuse, the main city in Sicily, was huge.
It was a powerhouse, almost as big as Athens. Wealthy, strong military, a major player.
And Athens gets this idea to intervene. There was a minor conflict between two Sicilian cities, Segesta and Selinus. Segesta asked Athens for help.
A classic case of mission creep waiting to happen.
Now, Nicias, the cautious guy, the guy who just wants everyone to calm down, he says, don't do it.
Right. The debate in the assembly is legendary. Nicias gives a speech saying this is costly, it's dangerous, we are barely holding on to our own empire, why go looking for trouble halfway across the Mediterranean?
It's a very reasonable argument.
Completely. He attacks Alcibiades personally, saying he's just doing this for his own glory and to pay off his massive debts from horse racing.
Which, to be fair, he probably was.
Oh, absolutely. But then Alcibiades gets up and gives this fiery speech. He compares it to the Persian Wars. He says, we have to expand or we die. If we don't rule others, we risk being ruled ourselves.
Yeah.
He promises riches. He talks about conquering not just Sicily, but Italy and maybe even Carthage.
He's selling them a dream of empire.
He paints this picture of absolute unlimited power. He tells them that their navy is invincible, that the Sicilians are a mixed bunch with no real loyalty. He makes it sound easy.
And the crowd goes wild. They are drunk on his confidence.
They are. But then Nicias tries one last trick. He thinks, okay, if I can't persuade them not to go, I'll scare them with the cost.
Ah, the sticker shock strategy.
Right. So he tells the assembly, fine, if we go, we need a massive force, not just a few ships. We need 100 triremes. We need 5,000 hoplites. We need archers, slingers, huge supplies. He's basically naming numbers so huge he thinks they'll balk.
But this is Athens. They don't do sticker shock.
Laughs. No. It just completely backfired. They loved it. They thought, with a force that big, it's guaranteed to succeed. So they voted for everything Nicias asked for.
Oh, no.
And in a twist of cruel irony, they appointed Nicias to lead the expedition, along with Alcibiades.
The guy who hates the plan and the guy who loves the plan stuck in a boat together, what could possibly go wrong?
Everything. But before they even set sail, something happens in Athens, that is.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird. It's terrifying. The scandal of the Hermai.
This is like a true crime mystery. Explain what the Hermai are, because this context is crucial.
So a Herma is a statue of the god Hermes. They were these square stone pillars with a head of Hermes on top and, well, an erect phallus on the front.
Right.
They were everywhere in Athens. Outside houses, temples, crossroads. They were symbols of luck and protection. They were part of the spiritual security system of the city.
And one morning, Athens wakes up.
And almost all of them have been mutilated. Their faces smashed. The phallus is knocked off. It was a mass act of vandalism. But to the Athenians, this wasn't just vandalism. It was Decelea, impiety. It was a terrifying bad omen right before the biggest fleet in history was about to launch.
It felt like a conspiracy.
It felt like a conspiracy to destroy the democracy from within. The city goes into a panic.
And fingers start pointing at Alcibiades.
His enemies seize the moment. They knew he had a reputation for wild parties, for drinking, for mocking tradition. They accused him of being behind the mutilation. And they added a second charge, that he had been profaning the Eleusinian mysteries, basically mocking the most sacred religious rites in Greece by performing them in a private home with his drunk friends.
Which may or may not have been true, but it was believable.
It fit his profile perfectly. Now, Alcibiades sees the danger. He says, fine, put me on trial right now.
Which was a smart move.
Very smart. He knew he had the army's support right then. The soldiers loved him. He wanted to clear his name before he left. But his enemies were cleverer.
What'd they do?
They said, no, you sail for Sicily now. We don't want to delay the mission. We'll handle the trial when you get back.
That is a trap, if I ever heard one.
It was a death trap. They wanted him away from his support base. They knew that once he was gone, they could whip up public hysteria and convict him easily. So the fleet sails. And it must have been a magnificent sight. 140 galleys, thousands of men, the hopes of the entire city.
But the whole time, this cloud is hanging over him.
The very dark cloud. And the moment they arrive in Sicily, a state ship, the Salaminia, arrives from Athens. The arrest ship.
To bring him back for trial.
To recall him. The mood in Athens had turned paranoid. They were seeing conspiracies everywhere. Witnesses were coming out of the woodwork, some of them probably paid. Alcibiades knew if he went back, he was the dead man.
So he gets on the ship to go back.
He pretends to. He says, I'll follow you in my own ship. But when the ships stop at Thurii in Italy, he slips away. He disappears into the Italian countryside.
And there's that famous quote when someone asks him, Alcibiades, do you not trust your country?
Yes. He says, in everything else, yes. But when it comes to my life, I wouldn't trust even my mother, lest she might, by mistake, cast the black ballot instead of the white.
The black ballot being the vote for guilty.
The vote for the death penalty. And he was right. Athens convicted him in absentia, condemned him to death, and confiscated all his property. There was a public curse put on him by the priests.
So he's on the run. He's public enemy #1 in Athens. He's an outlaw. Where does he go? This is the audacity part of our title.
He goes to the one place that should have killed him on sight. Sparta.
He walks right into the lion's den.
He contacts the Spartans and says, I can help you. I could do you more good as a friend than I did harm as an enemy. He promises to reveal all of Athens' secrets, and amazingly, they let him in.
This is the first great betrayal. He doesn't just hide in Sparta. He actively helps them win the war.
He destroys Athens' war effort from the inside out. He gives the Spartans 2 pieces of advice that are absolutely fatal to his home city. First, regarding Sicily.
Right, the expedition he starts.
The Spartans were hesitant to get involved. Alcibiades gives a speech where he terrifies them. He exaggerates Athens' ambition, saying they plan to conquer Italy, Carthage, the whole world, and then come for Sparta. He convinces Sparta to send one general, a man named Perilippus, to take command of the defense of Syracuse.
And that one Spartan general makes the difference.
It changes everything. Perilippus is a professional. He rallies the Syracusans, disciplines them, builds counter walls. The Athenian expedition, which was already struggling under Nausis's indecisive command, turns into a catastrophe.
The whole thing just collapses.
Utterly. The fleet is trapped in the harbor. Thousands of Athenians are slaughtered in the river as they try to flee. The survivors are thrown into stone quarries to die of exposure and starvation. It's the greatest military disaster in Athenian history. And it's partly because of Alcibiades' advice.
Wow. And what was the second piece of advice? That was even worse, wasn't it?
Decelea. This is pure strategic genius. He told the Spartans to take a fortified position at a place called Decelea, which is in Attica, just within sight of Athens.
I remember you mentioning that. Before this, Spartans would just raid and leave.
Right. They'd invade for a few weeks in the summer, burn some crops, and go home. Athens could just hide behind its walls and wait them out. But by fortifying Decelea, the Spartans could stay there year-round.
What did that do to Athens?
It strangled them. It was a permanent knife at their throat. They were cut off from their farmlands permanently. They lost access to their silver mines at Laurium, which was their bank account. 20,000 slaves escaped from the mines to the Spartan fort.
20,000.
Athens had to live entirely inside the long walls, relying on imported food from the sea. It turned Athens into a fortress under permanent siege. It was a strategic masterstroke, and it came from one of their own.
So he is living the high life in Sparta. He's adopted their customs, right? I read he grew his hair long, took cold baths, ate the famously gross black broth.
He was a chameleon. Plutarch marvels at this. He says that Alcibiades could outdrink the Thracians, outride the Persians and outstarve the Spartans. In Athens, he was witty and luxurious. In Sparta, he was austere and disciplined. But he couldn't change his nature completely.
The womanizing.
The hubris,
Yeah.
the absolute unrestrained arrogance. King Aegeus II of Sparta was away leading the army at Decelea, ironically, on Alcibiades' advice. While the king was away, Alcibiades allegedly seduced the queen, Timea.
You have to laugh. The man has a death wish. Why? Just because he could.
It seems so. It's the ultimate power move. There were rumors that the queen's son, Leotachius, was actually Alcibiades' child. Plutarch says Alcibiades wasn't even ashamed of it. He boasted about it. He claimed he did it because he wanted his descendants to rule Sparta.
Oh, come on. The arrogance of that is just off the charts.
It's unbelievable. Naturally, King Aegeus finds out, or at least hears the rumors, and he is not pleased. The political tide turns, he has worn out his welcome, an order is sent to a Spartan admiral, kill Alcibiades.
But Alcibiades, being Alcibiades, has his ear to the ground.
He always does. He finds out about the assassination order and runs again.
Defection number 2. From Athens to Sparta, and now, where does he go?
He flees to the Persian Empire, specifically to Tissaphernes, the Persian satrap, the governor in Asia Minor.
This is a whole new world. Persia is the traditional enemy of all Greeks. And here is Alcibiades, charming his way into the court of their local commander.
And once again, he naps. He trades the rough Spartan cloak for Persian silk. He starts living like a grandee, luxury, splendor, feasts. And he becomes Tissaphernes' chief advisor on Greek affairs.
And what's his advice this time?
His advice here is pure Machiavellian brilliance. He tells the Persians, don't help the Spartans too much.
Wait, Persia was supporting Sparta against Athens, right? With money.
Yes, they were paying for the Spartan fleet. It was Persian gold that was allowing Sparta to challenge Athens at sea. But Alcibiades says, let them wear each other out. If Sparta wins too quickly, they'll just become the new threat to Persia. Keep them balanced. Reduce the payments, delay the ships, let the Greeks destroy each other, and then Persia can pick up the pieces.
That is cold. He's playing both sides against the middle.
It's pure realpolitik. But for Alcibiades, it was just a lever. He didn't care about Persia. He wanted to get back to Athens.
Back to Athens, after the Hermai, after Decelea, after destroying their army in Sicily. How could he possibly think they would take him back?
Because he had something they needed. Persian money, or at least the promise of it. Athens was on its last legs. They were broke. They were desperate. Alcibiades saw an opportunity.
This leads us to the coup of 411 BC. This is a complicated bit of history, so let's break it down.
Right, so the main Athenian fleet is stationed at the island of Samos. They are the last real power Athens has left. Alcibiades sends messages to the commanders there, the generals.
This was a message.
He says, I can get Tissaphernes to switch sides. I can bring the Persian fleet and all its gold to help Athens. But Tissaphernes doesn't trust democracy. He won't deal with a mob.
So he's blackmailing them. Change your government or lose the war.
Exactly. He demands Athens become an oligarchy. The commanders at Samos, who are mostly aristocrats themselves, are intrigued. They sent envoys to Athens to push this plan. And incredibly, the Athenian people, who are desperate and beaten down, vote to dissolve the democracy and install a council called the 400.
They voted away their own freedom.
They voted away their own freedom just to get Alcibiades and his Persian gold. It shows you how dire the situation was.
Yes. But here's the catch. Alcibiades was bluffing.
He was completely bluffing. Tissaphernes wasn't going to switch sides. He liked Alcibiades' advice to stay neutral. So when the Athenian envoys came to Tissaphernes to finalize the deal, Alcibiades had to put on a show.
To cover his tracks.
Right. He made crazy demands on behalf of Persia, demanding islands, demanding the right to sail wherever they wanted in the Aegean. He made the demands so impossibly high that the Athenians had to walk away in disgust.
So he made it look like they failed, not him.
Precisely. Oh, you can't meet these terms. What a shame. But meanwhile, the coup had happened in Athens. The 400 were in charge. But the sailors and soldiers at Samos, the rank and file, they were Democrats to the core. They hated the oligarchy.
So you have a split. Oligarchs in the city, Democrats in the fleet.
And the fleet at Samos is furious. They declare themselves the true government of Athens. They are ready to sail back to Athens and attack the city. A civil war is about to start.
Which would be the end. Sparta would just walk in.
It would be the end of Athens.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is where Alcibiades does perhaps the one truly noble thing in his career, or at least the most strategically sound thing for Athens.
The fleet elects him general, right? They embrace him.
They do. They still think he has the Persian connection. They recall him from exile and elect him general. And the soldiers scream, lead us to Athens, let's kill the tyrants.
A lesser man would have done it. For the power.
A lesser man absolutely would have. But Alcibiades stands up and stops them. He gives a speech. He calms them down. He forbids them from sailing to Athens. He says, "Our enemy is Sparta, not our brothers." Thucydides says that at this moment, Alcibiades saved Athens. No one else could have controlled that angry mob.
So he is now the general of the democracy in exile, essentially.
Yes, and eventually, the 400 in Athens collapse under their own incompetence, more moderate government takes over, and they officially recall Alcibiades. He is no longer an outlaw.
But he doesn't go home yet.
No, he's too smart for that. He knows he can't just go back with promises. He needs to bring home a win, a big one. And this kicks off his redemption tour.
And what a tour it is. We move to the Hellespont, the modern Dardanelles, the vital trade route for grain coming from the Black Sea.
This is the jugular vein of Athens. If Sparta cuts off the grain, Athens starves. The fleets are clashing there.
Let's talk about the Battle of Abydos.
This is like a scene out of a movie. The Athenian Spartan fleets are fighting. It's a grinding battle lasting all day. Neither side can break the other. Then, in the evening, they see 18 ships sailing into the straits.
And both sides are thinking, is that help for me?
Exactly. But then they see the red flag raised on the flagship. It's Alcibiades. He charges in, smashes into the Spartan ships, drives them ashore. He turns a stalemate into a decisive victory.
But the big one is Cyzicus in 410 BC.
Cyzicus is a masterpiece. This is his tactical genius on full display.
Break down the tactics for us.
The main Spartan fleet, under their commander Mindarus, is at Cyzicus. Alcibiades uses the weather storm and rain to hide his fleet's approach. Then he takes a small decoy force of about 40 ships and sails right in front of the harbor. He makes himself look weak and isolated.
He's baiting them.
And Mindarus takes the bait, hook, line, and sinker. He sees a small force, thinks easy pickings, and sails out with his whole fleet to chase them. He gets far enough out to sea, and then the trap springs.
The rest of the Athenian fleet appears.
Two other Athenian commanders, Thrasybulus and Theramenes, pop out from behind the cover to cut off the Spartans' retreat to the harbor.
They're surrounded.
Completely surrounded. It's a slaughter. Mindarus is killed fighting on the beach. The entire Spartan fleet is captured or destroyed, and the message the Spartans sent back home was intercepted by the Athenians. It's one of the most famous dispatches in history. Short and brutal.
What did it say?
Ships lost. Mindarus dead. Men starving. Know not what to do.
Know not what to do. That is total defeat. That's a cry for help.
It's the sound of an entire war strategy collapsing. Alcibiades has basically won the naval war. He then goes on to take Selymbria and Byzantium modern Istanbul, and he does it mostly through negotiation and trickery, saving lives and money. He is unstoppable.
So now finally, in 407 BC, 3 years later, he feels safe to go home.
He sails into Piraeus, the harbor of Athens. But he's nervous. Xenophon describes the scene. He doesn't dock immediately. He stands on the deck of his ship looking for friends in the crowd. He's afraid a mob might still stone him.
After all those victories.
He knows how fickle his city is. He waits until he sees his cousin and other allies who can protect him.
But that's not what happens. The mob isn't angry.
No. It's a hero's welcome. People are crowding the docks, weeping, throwing garlands. They call him the only man capable of saving the city. They blame his enemies for his exile. They say, if only we had listened to him, we wouldn't have lost in Sicily. It's mass amnesia.
All is forgiven.
Instantly. All the charges are dropped. His property is restored. The priests have to publicly revoke the curses they put on him.
And he pulls a great PR move with the religion thing.
The Eleusinian mysteries again. Remember, he was accused of mocking them. Well, for years, the sacred procession to Eleusis had to go by sea because the Spartans at Decelea controlled the road.
The Decelea he told them to build.
The irony never ends. But Alcibiades takes the army, surrounds the priests and the initiates, and marches them to Eleusis by land, right under the Spartans' noses. He dares the Spartans to attack. They don't. He proves his piety and his military power in one brilliant stroke. He has reconciled with the gods and shown he has mastered the land again.
He is named Strategos Autocrator, Supreme Commander. He has absolute power.
He is at the peak of his career. But in Athens, the higher you fly, the harder you fall. And the fall happens incredibly fast.
It's the Battle of Notium, 406 BC.
And here's the tragedy. Alcibiades wasn't even there.
What happened?
He had to leave the main fleet to go raise money and deal with the siege elsewhere. He left his personal pilot, his helmsman, a man named Antiochus, in charge of the fleet in Notium. He gave him one specific order. Do not attack the Spartans.
Why?
because the new Spartan admiral was Lysander, and Lysander was dangerous. He was smart, cunning, deeply funded by the Persian prince Cyrus the Younger, and he had a strong, refitted fleet. Alcibiades knew not to mess with him until the time was right.
But Antiochus.
Antiochus was his friend, a drinking buddy, and he wanted to be a hero. He tried to mimic Alcibiades' decoy tactics against Lysander. He sailed a couple of ships past the Spartan fleet to taunt them.
But Lysander wasn't Mindarus.
Not even close. Lysander didn't take the bait. He launched his whole fleet, caught the Athenians disorganized and unprepared, and sank about 15 of their ships.
It wasn't a huge defeat strategically, was it?
No, not in terms of numbers. It was a minor skirmish. But politically, it was a disaster. Alcibiades' enemies in Athens screamed, "Look, he's negligent, he's arrogant, he's leaving command to his drinking buddies."
And the people listened.
The people turned on him instantly. The hero of yesterday was the bum of today. They stripped him of command.
Just like that, after saving the city.
Athenian democracy was a brutal beast. If you didn't deliver a win every single day, you were out. Alcibiades realized the game was up. He didn't wait for a trial. He got on a boat and sailed to his private castles in the Thracian Chersonese.
He had private castles.
He was Alcibiades. Of course he had backup castles. He went into voluntary exile. He never saw Athens again.
But he makes one last appearance in the war, doesn't he? A cameo before the end.
This is the most painful part of the story. It's 405 BC. The war is almost over. The entire remaining Athenian fleet is parked at a place called Aegospotami.
Which is a terrible location.
It's a disaster. It's not a harbor, it's just an open beach. The men have to scatter for miles to find food and water. And the Spartan fleet, under Lysander, is right across the water in a proper harbor.
And Alcibiades is watching this from his castle nearby.
Yes, he can see the danger. He rides down to the beach on horseback. He finds the Athenian generals. He tells them, "You are in a death trap. Move the fleet 5 miles down the coast to Sestos. You need a harbor. You are vulnerable here."
Does he offer to help?
Some sources say he offered to bring Thracian soldiers to help them fight on land. But the generals, they were arrogant. They were his political rivals. They basically told him, "We are in command now, not you. Go away."
Go back.
So he rode away. A few days later, Lysander watched the Athenians scatter to find food, then launched a surprise attack and annihilated the entire fleet. 160 ships captured, 3,000 men executed on the spot. The war was effectively over. Athens surrendered shortly after.
Alcibiades was the only one who saw it coming, and they ignored him out of pride.
And now, with Athens defeated, Alcibiades is a hunted man. Sparta rules Greece, and Lysander, the Spartan victor, wants him dead for good.
We're in the final act now, the death of a chameleon.
He flees to Phrygia, in Persia, seeking refuge with another satrap, Pharnabazus. He's always got another plan. He thinks he can get to the Persian king Artaxerxes and start over one more time.
But the Spartans aren't taking any chances.
No. Lysander sends a message to Pharnabazus. "Get rid of him. It's me or him." And Pharnabazus, wanting to stay on Sparta's good side, agrees.
The scene of his death is cinematic. It's 404 BC.
He is with his mistress, a woman named Timandra. Assassins sent by the satraps surround the house at night and set it on fire.
They won't go in.
They are too afraid of him. Even one man, alone, armed with just a dagger. They were terrified of fighting him hand to hand.
So what does he do?
He grabs his dagger. He wraps his cloak around his arm to use as a makeshift shield. And he runs out of the burning building, straight at them.
Wow.
And they panic. They fall back. They don't dare face him. They just stand back and unleash a shower of arrows and javelins. They kill him from a distance. He falls. And that was the end of Alcibiades.
It feels fitting. A violent, dramatic end for a violent, dramatic life.
It was the only way he could have gone. You couldn't fade away into old age.
So let's wrap this up. How do we assess this guy? Thucydides has a famous take on him, right?
Thucydides puts his finger on the central tragedy. He says that publicly, Alcibiades' conduct of the war was brilliant even. But his private life, his arrogance, his lawlessness, it offended everyone so much that they couldn't trust him.
They entrusted the war to others, which ruined the city.
Exactly. They hated the sinner more than they loved the savior. His personal failings were so great they overshadowed his public genius, and in the end, it destroyed both him and the city he could have saved.
I mean, he's a Rorschach test, isn't he? Some see him as a traitor and an opportunist.
People like the historian Meigs, yeah.
Yeah.
They just see a selfish monster.
But others see him as a brilliant scapegoat, a patriot who is brought down by lesser men.
Diodorus, even Demosthenes, later on, sort of rehabilitated his image. Some modern psychologists have looked at his profile and seen a classic psychopath. It really depends on what you choose to focus on.
So, a final provocative thought for our listeners. Alcibiades was very likely the only man who could have won the war for Athens, yet he was also the man who did the most to help them lose it.
That's the paradox.
So here's the question. If a democracy produces a genius who refuses to follow its rules, does the democracy have to destroy him to save its own soul, even if it means losing the war?
That is the question, and it's one we're still asking today.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.